as you long timers know, I don't do divergence anymore in these workshops simply because divergence is it's a complicated set of conditions. A good divergence, spotter or identifier, requires analyzing high and low points, in a sophisticated way. So that requires complicated programming to actually programmatically spot divergence properly, right? Yeah, so that's why we don't do divergence with BloodHound anymore, because it just requires more sophisticated analysis than what you can do with BloodHound. But we can revisit the simple concept of a divergence, and I'm not going to call this a divergence. What I would call this is just identifying, higher lows or lower highs, on an indicator, and vice versa on price. So so I guess on the indicator, right, we would identify a higher low, and then on price, try and pair it up with a lower low, and we can identify those two conditions, and whether they pair up to spot a divergence or not, maybe not. So I wouldn't call this a divergence logic. It's just identifying, when the indicator's lower high points are mismatched with prices, right? So I figured, I'd go over that, just to kind of have that logic out there. Yeah, to have that kind of, again, I'm trying not to use the word divergence. So maybe I'll come up with some kind of alternative word, because again, BloodHound is not good enough for spotting divergences. You do need a dedicated indicator to do that well. So this question came from Larry, and he sent in a screenshot here. Let's see if we can enlarge this a little bit. There we go. So Larry's email was basically trying to make a divergence system out of BloodHound. So again, you're not going to be able to do that, right? So one of the things he wants to do, and if you are getting into divergences, right, you probably recognize that, you might have a peak high, and then kind of try and figure out which lower low, which peak low on your indicator should you be using, right? And of course that is the perfect illustration of why you need a dedicated divergence indicator, so that you can specifically code, which of these peaks you want to look at, which means you have to store these peaks in memory, right? And of course that requires code, right? So BloodHound doesn't memorize indicator values. BloodHound looks at the indicator value as it is in real time. Right? So that's the difference between, building a system in BloodHound versus coding something up, right? With code, you have the ability to store various pieces of information in memory and then use them later on as you see fit, right? BloodHound analyzes an indicator's input in real time. So right now the chart is on this bar, right? Obviously the rightmost bar. So BloodHound only has access to indicator data on this rightmost bar. So, right? So as far as this Williams Awesome Oscillator, BloodHound has access to the oscillator's value on the most recent bar. And sure, you can look a couple of bars, but you have to know that is hard-coded. So, you have to know is exactly how many bars to look back, and you can't change that on the fly, right? But code, can do that. When you're writing, when you're programming an indicator, you can build in complicated logic that changes the look back period on it, as necessary. But that's not possible within BloodHound. So, yeah. So if you're wanting to look back, at the low peak back here, this is way back in the past, and so BloodHound really, doesn't have access to that information anymore, unless you program an indicator to take that peak low and plot it forward onto the current bar, just like a swing indicator, right? The reason why these swing indicators work is because it is taking that peak low and it plots it forward in time. So on all of these bars, BloodHound has access to where that peak low, that swing low is. It has access to that on all of these bars, right? Until the plot changes and finds another swing low. Now, BloodHound no longer has access to that swing low because that indicator is no longer plotting that value anymore, right? The swing indicator is now plotting this new low. So this prior low, that's no longer accessible, right? So there's, that's kind of, one of the limitations or differences, between being able to build something in BloodHound versus writing, your own custom code of something. So as kind of mentioned earlier, one of the limiting factors in BloodHound, with BloodHound being able to kind of identify, better divergences, is that the swing indicators, once it finds a new swing point, the old swing point, right, the previous one, is no longer being plotted. So therefore, BloodHound no longer has access to that swing because it's no longer being plotted. Within BloodHound, you only have access to the most recent swing high or swing low that's being plotted, right? So if you do go out and build yourself a better swing indicator that will plot previous swing points and plot them forward in time, so you have access to the current swing and maybe one swing back, maybe two swing backs, right? Whatever, you have to just create your own custom swing indicator that will plot as many prior swing points forward in real time, right? So for example, like over here, this swing low, if you built a better swing indicator, it would also be taking this prior swing low, plotting it forward. So you would have two swing lows being plotted forward in time, and maybe even a third swing low plotted forward, right? So you'd have a whole bunch of swing lows being plotted, on the current bar, right? So that's one thing that would be necessary. But then, if you think about it, your logic within BloodHound then really gets complicated, because then you have to try and figure out, well, which prior swing low do I want to use? Do I compare them all? Maybe sometimes you don't want to compare them all. So you're still going to get a bunch of false positive divergences, simply because, a proper divergence indicator does require complex, internal logic, code that, to determine, which swing points it should be using and which swing points make good divergences and which ones don't. So, all right. So that's kind of where this current topic came from, is we're going to take like a limited view on identifying when an indicator makes a lower high or a higher low, and price, goes the opposite direction. The Awesome Oscillator already set up on my indicator with the swing highs, lows on that. So, all right, so let me kind of break down what I've done here on the chart here. So let's open up the indicators list. So we have the Wiseman Awesome Oscillator, on the chart, just default settings there. And then I also have the swing highs and lows, right? Which again comes with shark indicators, right? There it is, right there, swing highs and lows. So, and the swing highs and lows, our input series, right, is set to the Wiseman Awesome Oscillator. Right, so that's what's being fed or nested into the swing highs and lows indicator. And then, of course, I changed the panel, for the swing highs and lows, I set the panel to 2, so that both indicators are sitting on the same panel there. Right. So also, kind of what you need to do is play around with the number of swings and the swing strength, so that visually, these swing lines here are plotting, the way you want them, or they're plotting the way that, so that they're identifying swing highs and lows, the way that you want to also identify those swing highs and lows. Right? So that's the other complicated part of trying to build a divergence indicator, is trying to get, your indicator, your swing indicator, to identify the swing highs and lows the way that you would do it, if you were eyeballing the stuff on a chart yourself, right? Yeah, so there we go. So we can see that whenever a new swing low is made, right, that plot will just switch down. So we have a swing low here. The plot stops because now there's a swing low up here above the 0 line, right? And so there's that red line, and then it drops down to the new swing low, right? On and on, so forth. So now I need to do the same thing on price, on the price panel here. So let me add another swing indicator. All right, there we go. And, probably we want to match up the number of swings and the swing strength. Should be matched up. And let's see, I think, yeah, that's all I need to do. There. And so now here's another issue with building a divergence indicator, is that your indicator doesn't always create swing points exactly at the same time price creates swing lows or swing highs. So we can see that there's an offset here. Draw a little line. There. So we can see that there's a 1 bar offset between the indicator making a swing low versus price making a swing low. And so that's another issue, that a dedicated, coded divergence indicator can compensate for these as well. That gets a little more complicated to do that with BloodHound. So you can do this to a limited extent, but once this offset kind of gets too wide, then it becomes, more and more complicated. So since this only has a 1 bar offset, that should be no problem. That should be pretty straightforward there. So, let's see here. Yeah. So this just kind of illustrates another possible problem here. Right, so price is making a new swing low and is quite a bit offset from the Wiseman Oscillator's new swing low there. Right. So, all right. So, anyways, we're not, like I said, we're not really gonna dive into this, addressing these issues too much. We're just gonna build something simple that tries to just spot a real simple um, um, different directional movement, between an indicator, swing highs and lows versus prices swing highs and lows. So, all right, I think I have my chart set up. So let's get BloodHound open and we'll start building some solvers here. All right, let's see. First thing, let's put in today's date for the workshop. All right, there's our workshop date. And let me switch over to the logic tab here, and we'll start working on the logic board. Let's see. Well, so the first thing I'll work on, which will be the easiest, is just identifying higher lows, right? So we'll identify higher lows. Actually, oh no, sorry. In price, we want the opposite. Sorry about that. Let me find. Well, okay. So I guess in this case, we'll identify higher highs in price, like so. Here we go. Or lower lows. All right. So let's see here. Normally, I would use a comparison solver to do this, but I know Mike, right, with our email support, he likes to use the slope solver. I guess it's a lot easier to set up a slope solver here. When you think about it, the comparison solver makes more sense when you think about it, because the comparison solver, right, you're comparing input A to input B, and input, let's see here, input A would be that bar and input B would be one bar back, right? So that you can compare the two, right? Compare the current bar with the one bar back using the comparison solver. But, also, another way of looking at this is, is with the slope indicator. So for swing lows, we're looking for the plot to slope downward, or the swing high plot to slope upward. So that works as well. So I'm gonna just use the slope indicator, just simply because it's a little easier to use there. So let's see here. All right, so we're going to identify swing higher highs or swing lower lows using this slope solver here. So for our input, we're going to set that to our swing highs and lows indicator, right, which is what we're using on the chart here. And remember, we do need to match up the settings here. So the number of swings is 2. The swing strength, I believe, was 4. The swing type, we left that at standard. And so those are the main 3 settings that matter here. Now, which plots do we want to use? So we want to use the widest tops for longs and the widest bottoms for plots, for shorts, right? And that's what's plotting. So the green hash plots are the widest tops, and the red hash plots are the widest bottoms, right? So just think of this as the widest tops is the highest highs, the widest bottoms is the lowest lows. All right, and yeah, there we go. Perfect. So right here where our arrow is, right, we had a new swing low, and there we go. We got a short out of it, and where we're getting new swing highs, right, we're getting a long signal out of it. There we go. All right, so that's price. So I guess, let me clarify the name here. So this is a price swing higher high or swing lower low. Right. And so now we need to do one for our Wiseman oscillator there. Right. So let's see here. Yeah, I'll just grab a new slope solver. All right, so WAO, Wiseman Awesome Oscillator, swing higher highs and lower lows. All right. So if you recall, on the chart, right, we have the Awesome Oscillator being fed or nested into the swing indicator. So we need to do that same thing here on within the solver. All right. So here's our solver that we're working with. So let's go and change our inputs here to match what's on the chart. So let's see. First thing we need, is the swing indicator. Right? So the swing indicator is this final plot, right, that we're looking at. So we're going to put the swing highs and lows on there first, and then we're going to scroll down to the Awesome Oscillator. So you want to do one click, a single click, and then hit the Nest Input button. And there we go. So now we're feeding or nesting the Awesome Oscillator into the swing indicator, right? Just as we did on the chart there. So let's see here. There's no period settings or anything for the Awesome Oscillator, so we can just leave that alone. It only has one plot. We're good there. So now we need to go into the swing highs and lows indicator and adjust, right, the settings there to match what's on the chart. So remember, number of swings was 2. Swing strength, we set that down to 4. And again, we need to figure out what plots do we want. So once again, we're going to use the widest tops for longs. Or actually, no, this time, let's see, this time it's going to be backwards. Because on the Awesome Oscillator, we're looking for higher lows, not lower highs. Or not lower lows, I'm sorry. We're looking for higher lows, whereas on price, we were looking for lower lows on price, but we're looking for higher lows on the indicator. So we need to reverse our plots. So for the widest bottoms, right, the red plot, we're looking for that to step up. And so if it's stepping up, then, with the, so I guess, this is one kind of limitation that the slope solver has. This is a limitation that the slope solver has, is that it's giving you the slope of the plot, moving higher or the plot moving lower. And, we can reverse that. Okay. Yeah, we can reverse that. I'll show you that in just a moment here. So again, we're looking for, right, the red plots to step higher. or slope upward. And that tells us that a higher low was made on the indicator. So there's that. And if we look at this, yeah, here we go. Right? So our swing low stepped higher, and we got a long out of it. Yeah. But, yeah, actually, yeah, we do actually want a long out of the indicator. Yeah, we want a long out of the indicator. So this is actually correct. And yeah, if the indicator steps downward, so if the indicator makes a lower high, then we're looking for, right, a possible short. Yeah. So our price swing highs and lows, this actually needs to be the opposite. Right? So if price is stepping higher, but our indicator is stepping lower, right? You know, if you're looking for kind of a divergence, logic there, or a divergence type of condition, right? You're going with the indicator. So the price swing highs and lows needs to be reversed. And we can do that by adjusting the outputs here of our slope indicator. Right, so again, I have this slope indicator selected here. And we want to reverse the outputs here. Right, so we're going to use output against direction. Right. So, actually, no, that's not working. Oh, let me reverse my plots here. No, actually, no, that's not right. Oh, wait, yeah, let me reverse the plots there. There we go. Okay, yeah, so on the price panel, right, when the swing highs step higher, right, we're looking for a possible, reverse condition there. If, of course, if the indicator is making a lower low. All right, I'm just studying this to make sure I got everything lined up correctly. I kind of spent the beginning of this topic kind of illustrating some of the issues that you're going to run into trying to use BloodHound, right, to build a divergence system. And here's another issue that you're going to run into as well, is, right, like right there, like we can see price clearly made a lower high, but on the indicator, this lower high was not detected, right? So that's another thing is, you're at the mercy of your swing indicator to identify, these swing highs and swing lows and having them match up with price. Yeah, so this is just illustrates another issue that you're going to run into, with trying to build a divergence system within BloodHound. Again, and also this kind of illustrates how critical your swing indicator is to all of this as well. Whereas if you're custom coding an indicator, you're not going to be reliant on a swing indicator within your code, right? Your code can actually address issues like this. So anyways, so there's just another issue there, right? So this, sorry, that swing high. But then again, maybe there wasn't a swing high on the indicator. It's kind of hard to tell. So, but you know, that is another possible issue that you will run into. All right. So anyway, so what I'm doing right now is just trying to find a divergence area here. Yeah, I think this will work. So here we can see right there, you know, these lines clearly illustrate that we're not matching swing highs with swing, you know, we're not matching swing highs on price with the same swing highs on the indicator. You know, so again, a dedicated divergence indicator, you know, would spot issues like that, and correct for them, you know, if that's the proper thing to do or not, or just ignore it here. But since we're using a swing indicator to try and spot these, you know, we're at the mercy of the swing indicator here. So, but here, yeah, this illustrates here where we should get a short signal here when price swing highs diverge from indicator swing highs. So let's see, next, what do we need to do here? Yeah. So let me point out here, right, that right on price, right, so price, the swing high on price was detected here, so I marked it with an arrow. But on the indicator, so I'm going to connect this other one, on the indicator, right, we can see that this lower high was identified 1 bar afterwards, right? So we have a 1 bar difference there. So we need to get those two to match up. And I think so I'm just going to take a simple approach at this right now and use a look back node. And I'm going to turn the displacement off. So we don't want to use this displacement. You know, so again, a displacement shifts the signal forward, right? So here, let's look at these. So our slope solver, right, it's producing a signal with where the arrow's at, right, as soon as the swing highs step higher. But then with the look back node, if I leave the displacement set to 1, we can see, right, that the short output is shifted forward, which is what the displacement setting does within NinjaTrader, right? That's what that displacement does in NinjaTrader, is it shifts everything, you know, X number of bars forward. So we don't want to do any shifting forward. We want to just use the look back period, and we want to use a max look back and find the maximum value just looking back 2 bars, right? And so now here we go. So whenever the swing indicator, swing highs step higher, now we get 2 bars, right, with this step higher condition identified. So we now have a short output on the bar where the swing indicator steps higher, but also on the next bar where my triangle is, because now that matches up with, right, with the indicator stepping lower down here. All right, so I'm just going to name this look back node to tell me what it's doing here. So it's got a 2 bar or 2 period look back here using the max mode. So again, right, pay attention to the signal on the triangle there. And so now if I connect in the Awesome Oscillator, right, lower high, right, we get a signal there. And so now if I grab a AND node, there we go. So now let's take a look and see what we have. There. So if we look at some of this, so it's kind of hard to tell, but actually here, let me. There we go. All right, so we can see that, right, these Renko bars made a new high, but the Awesome Oscillator made a lower high, right? So our swing indicator stepped down, and on price our swing indicator stepped up, and so there is a a mismatch signal. I guess maybe that's what I'll call this, a mismatch signal. So it's not really a very good divergence signal. It's kind of a simplistic divergence signal. And this is really as good as you're going to get with BloodHound. So as said before, producing any better type of divergence signal requires a dedicated indicator, that can go through and analyze the swing highs and lows, in a more complex manner, to get this stuff to work out properly. So, all right, so there's one. All right, so yeah, here we can see, a bunch of higher swing points. Price is just making a bunch of higher swing points, and the Awesome Oscillator is making a few, lower swing highs. So, and here we go. All right, here's what I was looking for. So we can see price is making a bunch of lower swing lows, and eventually the oscillator does make a higher swing low, and there, right, and there is our difference right there. Difference in swing highs and swing lows. All right, so with that, let me all right, there you go, something like this. So again, I don't want to call this a divergence because I don't want it to be confused with a good divergence indicator. So there you go. So basically, this is just finding mismatches between price, swing highs and well, actually, yeah. Let me rename this here. There we go. All right. So this is just identifying price, swing highs and swing lows versus indicator swing highs and lows mismatches. So that's as good as we can hope for using BloodHound logic. So, and again, the reliability, of these, swing highs and lows mismatches highly, actually not highly, but is 100% reliant on how good your swing indicator is that you're using. Yeah, some other things I wanted to point out here is the look back node, right? So again, depending on, on your swing indicator, right? Just to kind of illustrate again, right? When your swing indicator, identifies new highs or lower highs, right? Or actually, I should just say when your swing indicator identifies swing highs and swing lows versus when your swing indicator identifies those on your indicator, right, quite often there will be a bar or two mismatch, right? And so the way you compensate for those mismatches is this look back node, right? So right now we're only allowing for a 1 bar mismatch between the two, right? So we're only, for example here, let's connect that in, right? So on price, right, when a new swing high prints, right, we're only printing that forward 1 extra bar, right? So there's only 2 bars here that's extending this new swing high forward. So if your indicator has a mismatch of maybe 2 bars or 3 bars, then you would have to increase your look back period here. So if we increase that to 3, then let's see here. We might find more of these mismatches here. I'm not sure, but this is just something that you kind of have to experiment with. You kind of have to get to know your indicator and determine how lagging is your indicator. Does your indicator lag by only 1 bar? Does your indicator lag by 2 bars or 3 bars? So once you get an understanding of how many bars your indicator is lagging, then you can adjust the look back to compensate for that lag between price and your indicator, making swing points, right? So I'll just knock that back to 2, like so. Yeah, I guess also, just to note that, you can replace the Awesome Oscillator, with any kind of indicator. Like you could clearly replace the Awesome Oscillator with the MACD, with the stochastics, I guess with the CCI, a momentum, indicator, right? You could replace this, Awesome Oscillator easily. You just have to, right, in the lower swing solver here, in this lower swing solver down here, right, you just have to go into the input here, and replace this indicator, the Awesome Oscillator, with whatever other indicator you want to use, right? And so then you can find those swing point mismatches between any other kind of oscillating indicator versus price. So it's just a simple matter of removing the Awesome Oscillator, right? You can just click the remove button like so, and then go find some other indicator, like the MACD. I could, let's see here. Oh yeah, so you notice I have the MACD selected, but the nest input is disabled. So if that ever happens, all you need to do is click on your swing indicator, and now you can see the nested input now is enabled, and then go click the MACD 1 time, and now my nested input button is enabled here. So now I can click on it, and there we go. So now I'm feeding the MACD, and I'm feeding the MACD line, right? That's the plot that's selected here. If you want to feed the difference line into the swing indicator, right? So if you're looking for a mismatch between the MACD difference line or the histogram, just select that plot, and then that, right? So the difference plot is what gets fed into the swing highs and lows. And so that's how you can kind of convert this logic over to any other indicator that you might want to be using there. So there you go. There's a few other tips here on adjusting this logic, for other indicators and, mismatches between the swing points. So, or lag lagging between the swing points there.